From the News Channel 5 Network, this is the Takacs McGinnis Elder Care Law Hour.
Welcome to Takacs McGinnis Elder Care Law Hour, where we explore the many issues that arise due to aging, disability, and unexpected illness. I'm your host, Tim Takacs.
And I'm Barbara McGinnis. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Advance Directives. What are they? What documents do you need? What happens when you can't speak for yourself any longer? We're going to start with Tim and I just talking about the legal documents you need and the consequences, and just start off pretty easy. Tim, tell us what is an Advance Directive and how's that different from a living will?
An Advance Directive is basically a broad document that says if I need health care or if I'm in a situation where I can't speak for myself, this is what I want. You know, it's not a living will, although a living will is a form of an advance directive. A living will is a document that speaks for you if you have a terminal illness or you are in a persistent vegetative state and you find that you declare that you want certain things or you don't want certain things. That's what a living will is. But the advance directive is a broad document. So it's a
living will has a fairly narrow scope of utility.
Right.
And everyone really needs an advance directive.
Exactly, of some sort. Now, okay, I'm going to come back at you and ask you, okay, so what is a healthcare power of attorney?
A healthcare power of attorney is a document where a person names another person to be their advocate and spokesperson when they no longer could speak for themselves. The document could actually be effective immediately under certain state laws, but it's really just about naming a person. A lot of thought and care needs to go into who that person is.
Right.
It's not necessarily, doesn't have to be your spouse. It doesn't have to be your oldest child. It needs to be someone that's qualified to be a good advocate, somebody that knows what you want and is willing to stand up for it.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of information would that person need to know to be able to act as a good advocate? Well,
the chances are pretty good that a lot of our viewers may be a healthcare agent and don't know it.
That's true.
And we'll talk about that in just a moment. You know, and I think Barbara, you alluded to it. Is that the type of information that a healthcare agent, and we'll call it the healthcare agent under a healthcare power of attorney, has to have is that they have to know what you want. So if I'm the one that's making the healthcare power of attorney, and let's say I'm naming my wife as my healthcare agent, it's probably a pretty good idea that Lynn would need to know what it is that I would want and what it is that what I don't want.
Right.
I mean, that's ultimately that's like it.
And I know that we think having a healthcare power of attorney is probably the most important thing, more important than a living will. We do refer to it as an advance directive because our plan for advanced care is to have this person, this agent, make decisions for us based on our values. Right. You know, it's a person that knows and loves you, cares about you at least.
Right. And is able to advocate for you.
Is able to advocate based on, and can make informed decisions for you. So they take information from the medical provider, the doctor, and filter that information through what they know to be your value system and make decisions that they know you would want.
Right. So how important is it to have a conversation with your loved one, your healthcare agent, about what quality of life is for you?
Yeah, no matter how uncomfortable that is to talk about the dying process or end of life, terminal illness, it's essential that those conversations take place because it's more than just, do I want to be on a ventilator? Do I want a tube feeding? A lot of people get that far because
those are easy.
Yeah, those are the easy questions.
Right.
But it's, how do I want to live in my final days? What's most important? What am I willing to live with? What's a deal breaker? You know. And then, but you have to tell that person. You have to give them a chance to know how to make those decisions by having those conversations.
Right.
There's lots of resources and tools to help make that
exactly
an easier process.
And certainly, over the next hour or so, we're going to be having conversations with a lot of folks that are working with us every day.
Absolutely.
That can tell us about the situations that they've seen.
Yes.
And how important healthcare powers of attorney or advance directives really are. So do you need both an advance directive and a healthcare power of attorney, or what?
Well, I think a healthcare power of attorney is the most important document of the two. If you're going to have an advanced care plan or a living will, my advice is usually that you only share that document with your agent. Because it serves as a guide for that agent. Your healthcare providers need to know who the designated decision maker is, how to contact that person, in what order. Hopefully it's not a committee that's making these decisions. You don't have all of your children listed.
Right, and we've seen that mistake too. I remember years ago when my father-in-law was having surgery, I think colon, or like part of his colon or something, or small intestine being removed. We were in the hospital, and and we seeing the nurse that comes out with the clipboard. And gathering the family around and start asking, okay, what do you want? Like it was a healthcare decision by committee. And that certainly, obviously that's one way to do it, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you get what you want.
Right. When should you have one of these documents?
Well, I think our view here is that as soon as you turn age 18 or you become a legal adult or both, then somebody should sit you down and say, okay, son, daughter, or whatever, you need to sign, you need to think about this, and you need to sign one of these documents. And maybe in that case it's going to be your parent or somebody like that, but you still have to have that conversation. Somebody is still, no, we're all not guaranteed anything other than...
We're not guaranteed tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
So you need to have someone designated to make those decisions if you cannot speak for yourself. We never know when we're going to be in an emergent situation. Elder law attorneys, we think about people at the end of their life, maybe with a chronic illness, but...
Yeah, because I think the point that you mentioned earlier was a really good one. Is that there are easy decisions to make. There's most people that they would say, well, I don't want on life support if I'm terminally ill. I don't want to be on a ventilator if I'm going to die soon anyway. The harder questions are things like, okay, your loved one, maybe your spouse or your parent, has an advanced Alzheimer's disease and then maybe develops pneumonia or some other infection. How aggressively do you think that you want that person to be treated? Because chances are they can go through a regimen of treatment, and get over it, but is that really what they would want? And those are hard decisions to make. Well,
because what you're getting to is quality of life and chance of recovery. And a young person that may be in a car wreck may have a better, may or may not have a chance of recovery, but the older, but still go back to a normal, healthy, functioning life, perhaps. Whereas the older person that you're saying, Alzheimer's disease, pneumonia, we're recovering back to what kind of quality of life.
Right, and then I think the flip side of that is that people will say, well, I don't want to be hooked up to a tube or a feeding tube. Well, sometimes feeding tubes are they're therapeutic.
And when we're actually going to come back and have guests, and some of our guests are going to be physicians, and we can talk about some of those treatments that may just be temporary, supportive, while they're recovering through an acute illness versus being at the end of a life. And all of those are the factors that are the basis of informed consent then for your agent to...
Which is why I think what we often tell our clients is name a healthcare agent that you trust and that can advocate for you and knows what your wishes are. And if you get into that situation, you've got someone there on the ground that can assess the situation and say, do this and don't do this. Rather than looking at a document that says, well, my mother says she doesn't want to do this. I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
I read somewhere recently a drafting tip is keep it short.
Yes, which is what we do. All right, so up next we'll be speaking with a family physician. What does your family doctor need to know about your health care wishes? Stay tuned.